Buying a home is exciting, but it's also one of the biggest financial transactions you're going to make your entire life. Now, unfortunately, many home buyers make legal mistakes that really can be costly. They can be stressful or even prevents them from closing properly on their house. Hi, I'm real estate broker and real estate attorney, David Dowell. For those of you returning to my videos, thank you for coming back. For those of you that are new, welcome. I appreciate you coming. I want to talk today just a little bit about some of those common legal mistakes that a lot of home buyers make and basically how to avoid them. Now, first of all, it's number one, I'll say, is not understanding the purchase agreement or the sales contract. Signing a contract without fully understanding the terms or conditions or deadlines can be really dangerous. How do you avoid that? Well, number one, have a real estate attorney review the contract before you sign it. Here in Florida, we don't need an attorney to put together a contract. These contracts are basically forms with a lot of blank spaces, and the realtors fill those in on their own. Needless to say, and a lot of these realtors really don't understand it. They just fill in the blanks. So it's a good idea to talk to your realtor about it. If he or she does not understand it, then consider hiring an attorney just to review this. It's worth it, especially given the money you're going to be spending on purchasing the house. So ask the agent's broker, or like I said, just hire your own attorney. But you should always double check in the contract for deadlines, for things like inspections, financing, and closing dates. A lot of times you can get out of contracts, and if you do things by certain dates. So it's really important to know the deadlines. Now, number two, the second mistake I see a lot is basically people skipping a title search or title insurance. Now, assuming the property is free of liens, easements, or ownership disputes can be dangerous. If you're having a title company that's doing the closing or a law firm like here in Florida, chances are the title company or law firm is going to require a title search, and they're going to require, as part of the closing, title insurance be purchased. But here in Florida, the person who's responsible for purchasing that title insurance is the seller. So you got to be careful. Make sure that seller hasn't talked to the title company and said, "Psst, I'm not paying for it, so don't order it." You need to make sure that it's been ordered, the title search, and that the title company will issue a title policy that's paid for by the seller. This should be in the contract, so pay attention. So get that ordered, a complete title search. It'll show you any claims, liens, defects in the title that you need to know about so that you can fix. And last but not least, purchase that title insurance. It protects you against any unknown claims that could happen, not just during the current owner's ownership, but in the past. So do that. Number three mistake, a lot of people ignore what I call the disclosure laws. Not ensuring that the seller has disclosed known property issues like water damage, mold, or structural problems. You see, here in Florida, one thing we do is the seller, once you're under contract, the seller has to fill out what we call a property disclosure, or seller's property disclosure. This property disclosure goes through all kinds of stuff. Has there been a water leak? Does the air conditioner have a problem with it? Has there ever been flooding? Has there ever been cracks? Has there ever been blah, 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 blah? And the seller has to answer those and sign that. Now, that's really important because a buyer can't expect to find all problems just by a 15 or 15-minute walkthrough. Seller is responsible in Florida for informing buyer of any problems with a house that buyer cannot obviously see with a walkthrough. So if there's a big crack in the side of the wall, buyer can see that through walkthrough. If they don't notice it, it's on them. But if there's a crack in the foundation underneath a rug or carpet, then that has to be disclosed by the seller. So just make sure you review all of the seller's disclosures very carefully, you and your attorney or your agent. Ask your agent or the inspector who you've had to look through it to identify any potential issues. These are all going to be identified by you hiring a inspector to go through the house and look through everything. And also, you're going to find things that are wrong with the property. We always do, whether they're big or little. But make sure you request that repairs be made for any problem you see, or that you get any credits from the seller for any serious defects at the closing. Okay? You don't have to live with it. If you find big defects, you can get out of contract, but you can also ask for credits or ask that these things get repaired. But the number 4 mistake that I see a lot is really not understanding the contingencies in the contract. You know, waiving your inspection, your appraisal, or your financing contingencies too early. These are there for a purpose. Keep these key contingencies in place until you're confident that the property's condition and financing is going to go through. Once again, if you got an attorney, consult with him or her. It's really important. These contracts give you a lot of rights and a lot of ways to get out of the contract if there's problems. And a lot of realtors, unfortunately, don't understand this. A lot of them are part-time realtors, others full-time who just don't understand. So if you don't have an attorney, you're going to be relying on that real estate agent. So make sure the two of you together or with his or her broker or your own attorney that you understand everything that's going on. Now, the 5th mistake that I see quite a bit is basically overlooking zoning or HOA rules. Now, buying a property without understanding the local zoning restrictions or HOA rules can be a disaster. So obviously you want to check zoning before you purchase a property. That's usually not a problem. Here in Central Florida, almost every home that's sold is in a subdivision. So typically zoning laws, restrictions, if any, by the county, the local governments are shown through the HOA rules. But it's really, really important to review the HOA covenants, conditions, and restrictions carefully. You'd be surprised at what people don't understand. I had somebody come to me about 1.5 years ago, a friend of mine. She didn't have me use me as her realtor, but she wished she had now, but she didn't. She had a friend, I think a brother-in-law, who she's going to have work with her. She bought a nice house, probably spent more than she should. She didn't have a lot of money. And she came to me afterwards crying. And she said, David, you're not going to believe this. I spent all this money on this house. And I want to build a mother-in-law house, just a little one, in the backyard. But my HOA will not let me. I've heard stories of, hey, we want to build a workshop in the back for my husband. That's his job. HOA won't let me. No, of course not. HOAs are very strict. They're not going to let you do any kind of construction in that HOA without permission, and they're likely not going to give it to you. If you want that big, nice pink house, you're not going to get it probably if you're in an HOA. So you need to read through the HOA rules. Just reach out to your realtor and ask him or her to contact the seller's agent and get a copy of the HOA rules. That way you're going to know what you can and can't do before you're obligated and before you spent the money buying that house. Now, rule number 6 is what I say, not budgeting for closing costs and legal fees. Focusing only on the sale price and ignoring these extra costs like attorney fees, transfer taxes, title insurance. That's the mistake. I think I did another video you might see on my channel. It talks about fees. Bottom line is, if you're going to buy a house and the sale price is $500,000, you're not going to spend $500,000, folks, on that house. If you're getting a loan, you're probably going to be spending $520,000, $530,000, give or take. There's costs, fees involved with buying a house, just like in selling a house. So what you got to do from the beginning, before you put in that first offer, I would be asking my agent to give me a complete estimate of all closing costs. So they'll tell you right there. So if you got $500,000 in your pocket, and that's how much you have to spend, you don't need to be looking for a $500,000 house. You need to get these closing costs from your agent, and that might determine that You can buy a house for $480,000 because you're going to need $20,000 for closing costs. That equal $500,000. So just make sure you ask your agent, and if they don't know, you need to contact an attorney, or even the title company might help you out. But include these costs in your budget to avoid surprises. Happens all the time. Now, the number 7 mistake that I see a lot is failing to work with qualified professionals. You're trying to navigate the legal and real estate process alone. So you need to hire a real estate attorney or a real estate broker who understands what's going on. You see, most of us, we just hire a real estate agent. And that agent may be very, very knowledgeable about the process. I know a lot of them. But you also might have a real estate agent who's part-time or full-time. They don't do a lot of business. They don't really understand what's going on. So you need to figure that out and make sure that the person you're hiring is qualified to walk you through the entire process. Don't make the mistake. It'll cost too much. Don't hire your sister or your best friend just because they're your sister or your best friend. Make sure that people know what they're doing. If not, hire a real estate attorney to help and assist. Now, like I said, I'm a real estate broker and a real estate attorney. So when I assist my clients to buy or sell houses, they get my real estate attorney services for free. I'm able to walk them through the legal process, but you need to make sure you've got somebody to help you guys. So just work with a trusted agent who's experienced, or hire an attorney. So really the bottom line is, buying a home without guidance, it can be really risky, financially risky. Many mistakes are easy to avoid with the right professionals, with the proper review of all the documents, and careful attention to the contingencies and the disclosures. So guys, please make sure you protect yourself and your investment by asking questions, hiring experts, and never rushing the process. It'll take care of itself. So I hope this was interesting to you. You learned a little bit. If you have any questions, as always, my contact info is below. Shoot me a text, email, give me a call. I'll see if I can help you. Take care.